Sound the siren down in Dawsonville, Georgia. This is episode 78 of the Breaking Balls podcast. Somebody tell Beyonce this is Texas Motor Speedway week, and we're here to break down Chase Elliott's long-awaited return to victory lane in NASCAR. Of course, a lot to get to, a lot of self-spinning on the track, a weird kind of race that Fox missed half under commercial, and of course, Xfinity was probably once again the best show on track. It's a solo episode that nobody asked for.
Flags in the air. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys.
All right, everybody. This is episode 78 of the Breaking Balls podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, Spotify, first of all, like, subscribe. We appreciate you for being here. But of course, you're seeing, this is just one of me. I don't have my buddy Adam here, my co-host, my ride or die, my co-captain, my co-pilot, but unfortunately, he is a little busy. He's tied up right now. Couldn't make the show tonight, but you're going to have to deal with a solo Bobcast tonight for the Texas Motor Speedway recap here in NASCAR. So, again, welcome to episode 78. A lot to get into. Chase Elliott finally gets the monkey off of his back. It's been 42 races in NASCAR since NASCAR's most popular driver has gotten into victory lane. He takes Hooters into victory lane for the first time since 1992 with Alan Kawicki and Pocono. So 2 streaks get broken today out in Texas. You mostly think of Texas, if you're a NASCAR fan, as kind of a lull on the schedule. But after the last 2 weeks with Richmond and Martinsville, quite honestly, the bar was low. It was very low. It was on the ground. It might have been underground. So Texas had a perfect storm coming in of everyone just kind of being fed up with bad racing. You get a fairly hot track. It was over 80 degrees in Texas. It was finally hot in the south this week. So the track was pretty slick there. And boy, I mean, the drivers talked about it in pre-race. It's a frantic kind of race where they're on edge the whole time. And you saw that multiple guys today self-spinning, getting loose, back in the car into the wall. There was just a lot of I guess, attrition. It felt like a war of attrition race. This almost feels like back in 2022, the Darlington fall race, the Southern 500, the playoff opener, where you had a record number of cautions. It felt like half the playoff field had issues. This felt similar to that, where it was just who could survive toward the end. Chase Elliott ultimately was the guy that did that. It's huge for that 9 team to get the monkey off of their back. Hindsight's 2020, but if you really look at it, he hasn't been running that bad, especially to start 2024. Already wins one stage. This is a whole different animal to actually get the checkered flag at the end there, but had been running well. Obviously, they said on the broadcast, this was his first 1.5 mile top 5 in the next-gen car. He did win at Nashville in 2022. It's a 1.3 mile track, so it's kind of a skewed stat, but the fact of the matter is the next-gen car, and Chase Elliott's even admitted, he struggled in this car. He has not been the Chase Elliott that we expected, the 2020 champion, driving at Hendrick Motorsports, the top-of-the-line car you're going to have in NASCAR, one of the best seats you'll have, best equipment, best facilities, best resources. And it hasn't been the Chase Elliott that we expect. It hasn't been bad, but when you're a Cup Series champion in that kind of equipment, it's a different kind of level of expectations. And it hasn't been met, quite frankly. You don't expect him to run top 10. You expect him to be running top 5, especially with William Byron being an absolute force this last, 16 calendar months, if you will. Kyle Larson obviously being a force to be reckoned with since he's joined Hendrick at 2021. It just feels like Chase Elliott's kind of slowly started to go down the pecking order. The stock has slowly kind of been going away from Chase Elliott. And today was a huge step in the right direction for him and for Alan Gustafson, who, if you follow NASCAR very closely, you'll know Alan Gustafson gets a lot of flack being Chase Elliott's crew chief with the mistakes that come with strategy in the last few years and just bad luck when it comes to race just play out and management. Some of it's self-inflicted, some of it's not, but Alan Gustafson feels like he is a scapegoat for a lot of it. So in the press conference today after the race, it felt like he was pushing back at people, saying, hey, we've got the same numbers as Kyle Larson to start 2024. We've got the same amount of wins now. We're the third guy to win in our team. Chase Elliott's, he's back. The last time he won was Talladega in 2022 in the fall race. Where are we back in NASCAR next week? Talladega. So the guy who's notoriously good on concrete, he's got Dover coming up, Nashville in the summer. maybe the Chase Elliott stock is starting to trend back up in 2024. Something to definitely watch. I think the biggest thing is just getting that monkey off of your back. You can run well, but until you actually get across the finish line and take that checkered flag, and you get interviewed by Reagan Smith at Victory Lane, or I guess at the finish line now, I gotta imagine it does wonders to your confidence, especially for someone like Chase Elliott, who's already been to the peak of the mountain in NASCAR. He's seen what it's like, and then has slowly, like I said, started to dip a little bit there. I think it's huge moving forward for that 9 team, and to see not only for him but for Hendrick Motorsports as a whole. This is their 3rd car to win now. I mean, if everyone's firing on all cylinders, they're an absolute force. I mean, obviously it feels like it's an arms race between them and JGR right now. They've won 8 of the 9 races to start this year. But Chase Elliott, the guy who's been forgotten, the quiet champion over at Hendrick Motorsports, finally getting that monkey off of his back. Like I said, Talladega in 2022, that fall race, 42 races ago, holds off quite frankly, a frantic end there. 3 different late finishes, a double overtime restart, if you will, NASCAR calls it, after they burned off a few laps there with the Denny Hamlin spin there with 7 to go. And he had to battle Ross Chastain on his outside. He had Brad Keselowski behind him, who hadn't won in 106 races, I believe is the number there. So Brad himself had a dry spell, had fresher tires by about, I think they said 18 laps on the broadcast. And today, tires didn't matter a ton, but on green flag cycles it did. And Brad Keselowski was slowly moving his way through the top 5 when those late cautions happened. I think the first one started the whole sequence there with 18 to go with Hamlin leading. And so for Chase Elliott to be able to withstand not only the war of attrition all day, but then 3 late restarts, he looked aggressive out there. He looked confident, and that is massive for Chase Elliott moving forward. Again, he breaks his streak. He breaks the Hooters curse. A lot to be excited for moving forward if you're a Chase Elliott fan, which, 6-time most popular driver in NASCAR. There are plenty few out there that are excited to see that, as well as how he took the lead. You started with, you had a caution, 18 to go there. Denny Hamlin was the leader. Chase Elliott was running P2, holding off Brad Keselowski, well, like I said, had fresher tires by the skin of his teeth. Elliott lines up second on the restart on the outside lane of the front row. And as they take the second turn, he's neck and neck with Hamlin. A caution comes out. And they show even the graphic on Fox. It is minuscule. It is probably, you could pull a couple of mustache hairs out of me, and that would probably be the difference there. He gets a little bit ahead of Denny Hamlin when that caution comes out, and okay, he's got the control line, he's on the inside, and Denny Hamlin just never was able to get close enough to where he could clear Chase Elliott. That inside positioning was very, very strong, especially if you only had a few laps to run that restart on, because like I said, you had 3 late restarts there. It was massive for him to be able to hold those people off. And Denny Hamlin absolutely sends it going into the turn with Chase Elliott on the outside. Gets a little loose like everyone has today. No contact. It was very fair racing. Both guys, I think, are okay with it. Denny Hamlin loses it. Spins out, backs the car into the wall there, like we've seen multiple times today. Chase Elliott, holds off Ross Chastain. Kind of doors him a little bit there. A little controversial. Not a lot was made of it over the broadcast, but Chase Elliott definitely doors Ross Chastain. But with Chastain's background, you got to swing first, or you're going to get punched probably by Ross in that situation, especially going for the win. So Elliott was aggressive with Chastain, and then Chastain slides up the racetrack later in that lap, comes down on Byron's nose after he's already slowing the pace. People are going to say, oh, Byron takes out Chastain for his teammate. Man, it was just a bang play there. But, ultimately those late restarts, it was just guys racing for the win. I look at it for Denny Hamlin especially, is that he is in a position ultimately with multiple wins already this year. He is stacking playoff points now, whether it's stage wins or actual race wins. He is not going for third place. He's not going for, let's go for track position today. No, he's going for ultimately how he can point his way into a championship. And sometimes you get bit like that. On the outside, you're not going to be able to make a pass. At Texas, for whatever reason, if you're not in that first groove and a half, you're not going to be able to do anything, really. You could almost put gravel on the top half of the track, and it wouldn't matter. Nobody's going to use that. It's that slow up there. So Denny Hamlin wrecks out going for the win there, and then Chastain, like I said, he declined to do media afterwards. Looked like he was fairly ticked off there. It is what it is to me there. I think that's just racing for the win, especially the day it had been. I think with the Chastain yellow coming out to wrap up the race there for Elliott, that was the 16th caution on the race, which is a Texas record. It had been that kind of a day where people were racing their car on the very edge of control. You were almost racing on glass at times or on ice, and I think for Chastain, it showed he got very high up in the groove there, coming on out of 2 on that last lap, got loose in front of Byron. Still being Ross Chastain, not going to give an inch, tries to go for the block there. Byron going so fast coming out of that turn compared to Chastain, gets into him, bang, bang. It is what it is there. I think that, when you look back at the replay, there's not going to be any bad beef there. But it is just notable there that we did have some chaos there to end this race. Because overall, today, like I said, you usually circle Texas as being a lull of a race. And it depends on what you want. If you want chaos, you got chaos today. But you didn't have, the chaotic wrecks and all of that. You had guys spin out, and then after a couple cycles of pits, they would find themselves, fringe top 10, top 15 there. It just mattered about track position more than anything today. You saw guys like Harrison Burton, who got stage points in stage 2. If you've been following this podcast, it's a big deal. Harrison Burton led laps today naturally on his own merit. Wasn't because of a pit cycle. He just cycled out and led a few laps because, track position mattered. And you made the gamble. You stay out a little bit here and there. You got lucky. You could cycle your way up to the front. It wasn't like it was a day where you could just surge your way through the field there. Otherwise, Kyle Larson would have been there at the end. He struggled in stage 3, and we'll get to his day, but it just goes to show that no matter how strong you think your car is, if you get mired in the back of the field, or if you get stuck midfield there, depending on what your strategy is, you were going to be in for it for a little bit until that next caution came out. And luckily, like I said, 16 cautions. There wasn't a ton of lull there for green flag cycles. There was a couple green flag pit cycles early, but man, especially once stage 2 started, once Kyle Larson's wheel fell off, man, it was on. It was on like Donkey Kong today in NASCAR. You had a lot of guys self-spinning. It started with Jimmy Johnson. Bless his soul. Jimmy, every race now, it feels like there's an incident early with you. And he's even said, with this next-gen car, he likes to race with the right rear. That's how all the NASCAR cars have been to his career until now. He races with the right rear. And the next gen car, you can't do that. You're going to lose the car. And you've seen it every time he races. He with the lack of experience and seat time, he always seems to lose the rear end of that car when he's racing, if it's not some kind of early wreck. There's always a spin with Jimmy Johnson. So it just goes to show that these cars are so much different than the NASCARs of old. But it wasn't just Jimmy Johnson. We can't just chalk it up to seat time, because Christopher Bell, Ryan Blaney, multiple guys spinning today. And some of it was covered, some of it wasn't. We'll get to Fox's coverage, but the stuff that even was and wasn't covered, it was hard to get a good flow going in this race once you got into the meat and potatoes of stage 2 and 3. It was caution filled, and especially those last 20 laps. I think 3 or 4 cautions, like I said there. It was just hard to get into a rhythm and flow of the race. And so you saw people on social media. I like to gauge social media with the race. I know it's dangerous to do, but you saw people saying this race was great. It's got everything. Yeah, but it had everything but flow, and it wasn't easy to follow. You'd look up and all of a sudden, like I said, Harrison Burton was leading because of a pit cycle and did it on his own merit. But there was just something weird about today where it almost felt like, okay, today we're going to run 20 laps. Half the field's going to pit. We're going to jumble it up. And it just felt like we were just throwing a lottery today. Okay, now we're going to do 12 laps, and we're going to run 50 laps now, and the whole field's going to pit. The strategies weren't very clear today. And again, I think a lot of that goes back to Fox. Because if you're watching on TV, you probably had a very different opinion of what the race was at home compared to if you were at the track. We say it every week. It's very popular to rag on Fox. But it just felt like if you weren't on social media keeping up with what was going on, race strategy, cautions, Austin Hill going out of the race with steering issues right before you had the Kyle Larson wheel. None of that was really covered today on Fox. If it was under caution. They came back, briefly mentioned, something like Austin Hill went to the garage. If you're a viewer, you're tuned in because you're watching the race. You want to be informed. You want to know what's going on because you're not able to go to the track. Imagine turning your TV on and watching an NFL game. They're going through the offenses out there for the Chiefs. All of a sudden, Travis Kelce's not out there. Or, the starting tackle for the Chiefs isn't out there. That's probably more like it. The starting tackle for the Chiefs isn't out there randomly. Broadcast maybe mention, and he's not out there right now. We'll see what's up. And then they never come back to it. There's just the lack of details in the broadcast is really infuriating because it really does tell a story. If you really follow a race like today, where there's a lot of fluidity in the race, there's a lot of comers and goers, and Fox just it's so gimmicky. That's when it's on TV. When it's not on TV, it's just commercial breaks, and that's when it feels like the action's going on. And that's not fully Fox's fault. You can't time that. But at some point, it is telling that even, on a broadcast like FS1, where you're in theory going to be less commercials than the main Fox broadcast, for as many incidents as there was, they were under commercial. At some point, it's not a coincidence. It's not bad luck. It's because you're under commercial that much when you're under green flag racing. I don't know what the solution is there, but the fact that as a race fan who is very tuned in usually to the broadcast and is following along, I can pick up stage stuff going on. I can usually figure out, this guy's splitting the stage. He's doing that. It was hard to follow a lot today. And maybe that was just for whatever reason I wasn't following it right, but you've got Clint Boyer and Kevin Harvick, talking about the stockyards in Fort Worth and how Boyer's hungover, and poor Mike Joy. He's broadcasting these onboards while he's saying, there's a battle for the lead in turn one, and instead we're doing narrow shots. And I know it's been dragged over, like a dead horse, beaten like a dead horse, but these narrow shots with Fox, as a race fan, I want to be able to see the whole track. I want to be able to see in front of the car, behind the car. I want to be able to see the entire aspect of it all because I'm not at the track. I don't want an onboard camera. This isn't a video game. And I just feel like Fox overdoes it with so many things, and then the little things that they can do, like an Austin Hill, like I said, where he wasn't out there after staying out early in stage one, running in the top 5, was the only RCR car that looked like he had speed for a long time. Randomly goes in the garage with steering issues. And you have to see an interview with him on Twitter instead with Bob Pockrass because Fox doesn't show it on the broadcast. Again, if you're just tuning in for your first NASCAR race, you don't care about Austin Hill finishing last and with the steering issues, but it's a disservice to the garage and it's a disservice to NASCAR fans to not tell the entire story of a race. Because like I said, if you're not at the race but you're tuning on TV, you want to know what's going on like you're there. You want to feel like you're there. And half the time, I have to pull up my phone during a broadcast or during a commercial and catch up on what's going on with the race. Catch up on what Fox has missed. What other sport can you say that about a broadcast for? And I know this is such a rant. If you've made it 20 minutes into just me talking, congratulations. We'll get back to, more of the actual race, if you will. Because what they did show on Fox today was stage one. They did cover a little bit. Joe Gibbs Racing had an incident in stage one today. Otherwise, it was stage one was completely free. You thought, oh boy, we're going to have another boring race. It's going to be Martinsville, follow the leader. And then the green flag pit cycles happened in stage one, and Joe Gibbs Racing said, we got you. We're going to make this a little entertaining. You had Martin Truex Jr. with his pit issues. They had to come down the pit road. You had his spat with James Small on the radio saying, I'm going to bring it down. You want me to bring it down? That's what I said. It's just like a married couple with an Australian accent. They had that. They had the Ty Gibbs pit issues where, first of all, he has to stay out long on his green flag cycle. He's leading, wants to come in and lose his valuable track position because, and I think it was confirmed it was Corey LaJoie, but it was between Corey LaJoie and Austin Cindric. Spilled some gas when they were on their green flag cycle right next door on pit road, and it caught fire. So there was a literal fire in Ty Gibbs's pit. So they had to hold him. He lost a little bit of time there staying out too long. And then over the next caution cycle when he pits, the gun breaks and sticks on the car. Now they got lucky and it wasn't a penalty for bringing the equipment out. I don't know how that wasn't because he dragged it completely out of the box, but they got lucky. Only had to come back down, but they lost track position again there, and that was a car that was leading the race. And we've seen it a lot this year with Denny Hamlin and Christopher Bell. Their pit crews have been pretty good for the most part. You know, Christopher Bell had his spin in stage 1 that ultimately kind of wrecked his day there, and that was just another check in the box for Joe Gibbs early on there. He thought, it's going to be a cloudy day for Toyota. But man, these Toyota pit crews, they are something else right now, because you look at Tyler Reddick, who we haven't even talked about. We're 21 minutes into this podcast, and there was a moment there for about a half hour in stage 3 where we thought Tyler Reddick's going to run away with this race. He had about a 4 or 5 second lead on the field, and then they do their green flag pit cycles late in stage 3, about 80 to go. And Tyler Reddick comes down, and they've had a good day for the most part relatively with 23.11, so they were due. Naturally, they were due. Long pit stop. And I'm talking long, you're saying he's still there. Oh, he's still there. Oh, this is a long stop still there. Comes out there, Denny Hamlin's passed him. Ultimately, Reddick passes Hamlin again under green flag. Under commercial, which, what's new there. But you get that Toyota pit crew, again, just a lot of issues. And I'm not sure why that is. No matter how many times they tinker with the setups there, obviously last year you had Christopher Bell and I believe it was Bubba Wallace, their pit crew swapped. And the Bell team was fantastic under Wallace and vice versa. And they had issues before that. And then Ty Gibbs' pit crew won the pit crew competition last year at the All-Star race and has a lot of struggles to start 2024. It's just very strange to see why it's Toyota usually that has the long-term pit road issues. Unless you're Ryan Blaney, but that seems to be out of the cobwebs since he won the championship. Ryan Blaney hasn't had a lot of pit issues. It has been primarily out of the Toyota camp. So not sure what was going on there, but it literally took a fire set by another team to slow down the JGR Toyotas again. But other than that, I mean, it feels like every week on this podcast, whether it's Adam, whether it's me, whether it's both of us, we're saying the same thing to start 2024. It's either Joe Gibbs Toyotas leading the field very fast, or it's Hendrick Motorsports Chevrolets. And, like I said earlier, stage 1 was very uneventful outside of the pit road issues for Joe Gibbs. But what I didn't mention was Kyle Larson. And yeah, I said earlier his wheel fell off, but Kyle Larson, you thought he was going to have an old-fashioned butt-whooping today. Led 77 laps to start, won stage 1, and then, this is his 3rd race in a row where he started on pole. So you thought, okay, what's going to go wrong today for Kyle Larson? Third time's the charm, right? Nope. Something went wrong again. You have I believe it was the Christopher Bell spin that started the whole sequence. I'll have to double check, but you're under caution. We go to commercial break. Of course, what's new? You come back, and they said Kyle Larson thought he had a loose or a wheel, a tire going down. He thought his right rear was going down. It wasn't going down. Kyle Larson's wheel completely fell off. It took Kyle Larson driving on 3 wheels to slow him down today, because obviously once you lose the wheel there, NASCAR's changed the penalties from last year. Now you're held for 2 laps there. So it really did sting there where it's okay if you're 1 lap down. You can get that back. It might be a struggle, but eventually you'll get that lap back. It's that second lap that's tough to get back. And to see the fastest car early on in the race get sent back 2 laps down, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be tough. If anyone can do it, it's Kyle Larson, but this is going to be a challenge. And he gets that second lap back in the second stage. You thought, okay, here we go. And gets back on the lead lap. You're looking there at stage 3, and you're thinking, where's Kyle Larson? He's still mired back there, late teens. At one point, he was in the early 20s there, battling with Kyle Busch. And I don't know what happened with that 5 team. Ultimately got caught up in one of the late wrecks there, I think with 8 to go, got caught up in one of those. So, his day, really was downhill ever since the tire fell off there. But I'm not sure exactly what happened to the 5 team to lose that speed, because once he got on that lead lap, I think conventional wisdom for NASCAR fans was, okay, he's a factor again in this race. I know it's tough to pass, but especially with the amount of cautions, he's slowly going to chip his way up there. And, I guess you could say he was starting to make his way back up into the top 10, toward the top 10, but it wasn't anywhere near the speed that he had early on this race, which goes to show track position was so valuable today. And the 5 team, once they lost that wheel, they were doomed. And it just feels like for Kyle Larson, again, like I said, this is his 3rd race in a row on the pole. It's not that 5 team lacks speed. They're their own worst enemy. Kyle Larson's the one, and this goes back to last year with the DNFs. This was the reason that he didn't ultimately make a run into the championship last year. Was Kyle Larson had all those issues, self-inflicted for the most part, wrecks, pit road issues. To have something like this today where you were clearly the best car on the track when you had clean air, it's got to be frustrating for Kyle Larson and for Cliff Daniels and that 5 team to see that, especially with your teammate Chase Elliott winning today. There's an alternate reality where that wheel stays on the 5 team and they're the ones in victory lane today. But that is NASCAR, where the first stage and a half you look like you're team to beat, and then you finish. I want to say Kyle Larson finished somewhere in the late 20s there. Let's double check there. I should have had that up. Kyle Larson finished 21st. Yeah. If you would have told me Kyle Larson finished 21st after stage 1, would have said something very, very wrong. It did. It took 3 wheels riding around and a wheel falling off. But again, rinse, repeat. This is a Joe Gibbs Racing versus Hendrick Motorsports 2024. And until I see otherwise, that's kind of what I'm going to lean toward as the championship, because Ford right now has absolutely no consistent team that shows speed. You'll see Stuart Haas every now and then throw Chase Briscoe into the top 10. Penske, with back-to-back champions in 22 and 23 with Blaney and Logano, you'd think they're going to have something eventually, but the longer this Ford goes without winning and without even showing real consistent speed, you could make an argument Todd Gilliland was one of the better Fords today. That's not a slight on front row. We've been praising them. If Adam was here, he would be absolutely appalled that I even mentioned this. But the fact that front row is one of the better Fords right now really just shows that they're not where they want to be with this next-gen Mustang, with this new dark horse Mustang. Obviously, Brad Keselowski was very, very close. If that whole green flag cycle to end stage 3 goes green, where he's chasing down Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin, he might catch him. He might catch Hamlin. I think he does get to second at least, which is ultimately where he finished today. So can't be too upset if you're RFK, but the speed is not there on a consistent basis for Ford. And, for these teams, when you're going to have to win in the playoffs to advance for the most part, especially when you get to that round 8, am I really going to pick a Penske Ford right now against, someone like Joe Gibbs or Hendrick with their, 4 teams each? It's going to be tough. And that's something to watch moving forward if the field does catch up to these two, or if it's more of the same dominance. But again, another week where it's rinse and repeat. It's the class of the field is Joe Gibbs Racing cars, Hendrick Motorsports cars. More or less the same, I don't know. Talladega next week, obviously Ford's going to have a lot better shot because of the numbers and because of the way they set up with their drafting style tracks. It's not that their race their qualifying trim hasn't been there. We've seen the qualifying speed at times with Ford, but it's that race pace that just there's something about it that's concerning. They haven't had a race where one single Ford has been the dominant car, where you go, okay, that's probably the car you're going to have to beat today. Whether like today, it was Kyle Larson, it was Denny Hamlin for a little bit there. There was never a moment in today's race where there's a Ford. And there hasn't been really in any of the races so far this year, outside of maybe the Daytona 500 with Joey Logano. But again, drafting style track, it's hard to really put a lot of merit into that. So just a note there moving forward with Ford, if they can figure it out and catch up with the rest of the field. Otherwise, let me tell you, if you're in Vegas and you want to bet on anything NASCAR, any of those Joe Gibbs or Hendrick cars to win the championship right now is not a bad look right now. Just to kind of look into the overall results here, I did mention Kyle Larson 21st. Did have that pulled up finally there. William Byron is the guy that comes in third there. He obviously turns old Ross Chastain, like we said, who finishes 32nd. Definitely not deserving of that finish there, but Byron comes in third there. He just points his way every week. It's just absolutely consistent there. Tyler Reddick in fourth there. It feels like another wasted opportunity there where the 45 team has a lot of speed. And yeah, don't get me wrong, they finish, in the top 6 to 10, but feels like they're leaving a lot on the table there. They're still leaving some meat on the bone there. So I'm not really sure if there's anything you can change with the 45 team. I think some of it's luck. He hit the wall, pushing late there, but I feel like, as we say with the Joe Gibbs and Hendrick stuff each week, it's the same thing with the 45 team. They've got speed, just can't quite finish there. And I think once he gets into victory lane this year, maybe that monkey will be lifted off of his back. But Daniel Suarez was another guy that was there late, as well as Chase Briscoe, 5th and 6th there. Chase Briscoe really showing that another week where he is really kind of shown that, okay, I'm the guy at Stewart Haas. I am still here. I am the top dog here. I'm hoping to see Chase Briscoe kind of be up there with the Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney's of the Ford camp, being the face of that, being the guy who's pressing for that first Ford win. Chase Briscoe definitely another step in the right direction today. Lo and behold, you're not going to believe me, folks, but this is the first time this year in our Lord of 2024 that Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon both finished in the top 10. Now, wasn't based off speed. I'm going to go ahead and say that right now. If you're an RCR fan and you're watching this, you can go ahead and comment, slander me, whatever. Wasn't based off race pace, but in a war of attrition race, you got to be there at the end. And that's something that the 3 team and the 8 team did. And, Kyle Busch definitely had some moments there where he got, just absolutely traffic coned. Austin Dillon was definitely not there all the way, but you got to be there at the end. And the fact that they were able to hold on through multiple restarts at the end and come away with 8th and 9th place finishes respectively, absolutely fantastic for RCR. It's an absolutely huge W for them moving forward. I know the Austin Hill result, I guess you can call it, where he goes out with power steering. Nothing you can really do there. Carson Hocevar, top 10 finish in that Spire 77, a rookie running 10th today at Texas. Just shows that kid's got some talent. He is going to be in the Cup Series for a long time, if you ask me. I am very high on Carson Hocevar stock, especially compared to his other teammates. You look at a guy like Corey LaJoie finishing 22nd. He's supposed to be the veteran, and the guy that has been at Texas now a couple of times is the leader of Spire, and he hasn't just been definitively been the best. Especially when you look at Carson Hocevar today running 10th. Was consistently hanging around on the lead lap in the top 20 today, hung around just enough, and beats guys like Logano, Truex, Bell, obviously Larson. Huge for them. Huge for Carson Hocevar and Spire to show that young driver has what it takes to compete at the Cup Series level and not just be somebody that has potential, but it shows that he might be in over his head a little bit too early, a la a Harrison Burton or someone like that. So a huge week for Carson Hocevar to get 10th there. Ryan Preece in 12th even. That was not a bad result there. Ty Gibbs, Truex, both 13th and 14th. It feels like those Gibbs cars, any week that they're not in the top 10, it's a loss, to be quite honest with you. And Bell in 17th, same thing for him. Obviously, the issues today, backing it into the wall, was never the same there, but For Christopher Bell to get outrun by Ty Dillon in the Kaulig 16 car who finished 16th, credit where credit's due. Ty Dillon did just enough in that Kaulig car today. We will slander Kaulig when they deserve it here on the podcast, and they have, rightfully so. But Ty Dillon getting 16th today, that's a good result. That's respectable there, as well as Daniel Hemrick in 20th. Not horrible today for Kaulig, I gotta say. I need Adam here because he would tell me, no, it's still bad. But no, unfortunately, you got to give Kaulig their props today. Just to kind of round it out here, Austin Cindric, another lackluster day. Ever since the start of the season where he had a couple of good runs on those plate tracks, 25th in a Penske Ford. I just don't know what to do with that team. There's not a lot in the pipeline. We've said it on this podcast, but lackluster day. Justin Haley, though, on a good note for Ford. 24th. I know it doesn't sound great, but the fact that team had speed again today to compete in the top 20 at points, not asking for much. But the fact that a Rick Ware car is finishing 24th and 27th with Justin Haley and Kaz Grala, they are trending in the right direction. And I did mention him, Jimmy Johnson, 29th. I'm glad he came back. It's always fun to have him in the garage. You need your legends around. Man, oh man, this next-gen car and him do not get along. And I don't know if there's anything in the sim that he can do, or if it's just kind of how this is just going to go. Maybe it's better he's an owner and not a driver. More emphasis on the owner, less on the driver there. But Jimmy Johnson, 29th after a rough start. It didn't get much better. And then to put a bow on it, no pun intended, Alex Bowman, 37th. A tough day for him with his teammates looking very good. Had some early speed, got mired back there, had an issue on pit road, and then got caught up in a wreck and ultimately put his day there. It feels like that's the thing with Alex Bowman, is he always has these things that go wrong for him in a race that put him back there. But at the end of the day, if you're stuck in the back of the field, you're at a risk that you're going to get caught up in something, whether it's through the fault of your own or not. And I don't know what there is to do there with the 48 team, but man, when the rest of your teammates are winning and you're now the only man who hasn't won on the team, that spotlight gets bigger and bigger every week. And especially when results like these, whether it's luck or not, add up. Not making the playoffs last year didn't help, but when you're in a Hendrick seat, there is a lot of pressure to perform. And whether it's through luck or not, Alex Bowman, not another day that he can really hang his hat on. So we'll see what he's got next week at Talladega. Obviously, he is a decent plate racer there. He needs some good finishes coming up. That is putting it lightly, but he needs to get his confidence back because, like I said, with the rest of his teammates now flourishing to start the season in this arms race with JGR, Alex Bowman's can't be that weak leg. He absolutely can't. So we'll see about that moving forward. Obviously, Talladega next week. Real quick on the rest of the weekend here at Texas. You had the Truck Series do their whole truck thing. Kyle Busch came in and bullied the Truck Series on his, kind of quarterly race he does with that agreement with Spire since they bought his truck team. So Kyle Busch, your winner on Friday night in a fairly forgettable race, if you ask me. The Xfinity race, though, oh, baby. There's a lot of people that are vocal on Twitter saying that Xfinity is the best racing each weekend in the NASCAR series. And if you're one of those people, you have another reason to make that argument because the Texas race, I mean, if you haven't seen the finish, obviously it doesn't get any closer between Sam Mayer and Ryan Sieg. Mayer, I think it was 0.002 hundredths of a second, beat him at the finish line. You have a great battle with about 20-ish, 18 to go, where you have Sieg just rocket out to the lead. It was Justin Allgaier's race for most of the race. Had a great car, just, as the race kind of played out toward the end there, got caught up in some things there and just, slowly. Ryan Sieg, he came alive toward the end. He's never won a race. It's a great underdog story in this 39 Ford team for Xfinity. And then on the very last lap, gets passed by Sam Mayer. He comes with a crossover move on the backstretch and gets so close to passing Mayer. It was heartbreaking. I mean, what a great finish, though. Two guys that are Xfinity regulars now. These are guys that, are stars of the Xfinity series, especially Sam Mayer with Junior Motorsports. He's a young gun there. These are guys that they need the publicity. They need their name out there. And it's great recognition. It was clean racing. There was no, you can't just turn away and go, oh, that was just typical, lower tier race. No, it was great. It was fantastic racing. The aero package on the Xfinity cars is just absolutely fantastic. Whatever they do with it, they gotta talk to the next gen aerodynamic people and just say, hey, this is how you build a race car, because the Xfinity car is just fantastic. And obviously, just as a whole on the weekend for Texas, obviously with them losing their playoff race, they didn't have the All-Star race. Now, to have this early spring race, it's April, it was still in the 80s in Texas. I didn't mind it because it's still hot. You're getting a hot slick track, but not overbearingly hot to where the fan experience isn't too much there. Wasn't horrible. It's doable, but it's still hot enough to where the track matters. It's still slick. You saw guys spin, whether it was because of the bump out of turn 4, because of the track. You saw a great crowd today, and maybe, just maybe, is this mic on? Maybe Texas isn't that bad after all. I know. Just a thought. Marinate on it, sleep on it. Give it about 24 hours, and then you can tweet, DM, message me if you want, and say, you're an absolute moron. Texas needs to get reconfigured. Whatever they're doing with the bull ring or the super speedway, that's kind of, died down on those talks. They need to bring that back, because this Texas track isn't it. Go ahead and let me know. But again, wasn't horrible today. I think that moving forward, the fact that Texas produced better racing than Martinsville and Richmond is more saying something, I think, as to where NASCAR is nowadays, maybe. But for all the slander Texas gets after this weekend, I think that more of the gripe has to be on the broadcast than the actual track. And I think if you were at the track today at Texas, you got your money's worth. If you're a fan, you're watching at home, you probably didn't. But that's a whole different argument for another day. Not a lot of off-track news. The only thing notable here I had written down, Kyle Larson doing the Indy 500 testing last week. That was shortened a little bit by rain, but Kyle Larson, I don't care what the asterisks you want to put by it. I don't care if you want to say it was a toe lap where he got the draft. Ran second overall in practice testing for the first day at Indianapolis in the 500. For a guy who has never been in IndyCar before, to come off of the street, I know he's done a lot of sim work with McLaren and Chevy, but the fact that he can come in and already throw down a lap like that, I am so excited to see what Memorial Day looks like with this, I guess Hendrick 11,000 or 1100 they're calling it, the Hendrick 1100, where he's running obviously the Indy 500 during the day, Coke 600 at night. If he even performs somewhat well this year, there's expectations he might win in 2025 when he runs it back-to-back years for the 500. We'll see. But you don't want to put a ton of expectations, but obviously he's in a competitive car with McLaren. I'm very, very excited to see Kyle Larson, more testing coming up, obviously, at Indianapolis. But the fact that he was a notable P2, had to give a shout-out on the podcast there. Not a ton else going on right now in NASCAR. Talladega this week, like I said, that is going to be a very exciting week. Obviously, if you're a fan, whether casual, diehard, new, Talladega, you love Talladega for what it is, the big one. We'll see what comes of it. Maybe Adam will be back. I hope so. I've done almost 45 minutes of solo talking. Let me tell you, if you've never done something like this, it's very uncomfortable. It's very weird. I don't know how to feel about it. But if you've made it this far, you're either a very true loyal Breaking Balls fan, you're somebody very lost on the internet, or you're giving us a try. Either way, if you're any of those three, if you've made it this far, like, subscribe, give us a comment, share it to a friend. We always say be a friend, tell a friend. This is a grassroots movement here at Breaking Balls. So once again, we appreciate everyone that is a part of our podcast. We're just a couple guys having some fun, talking some racing. We have no experience with this whatsoever. So if you take any of our analysis with any professional sort of grain, that's on you. You've been warned. But hopefully Adam is back next week. Again, Bob here at Breaking Balls on the solo Bobcast post-Texas. And we will be back next week for Talladega and all that we can recap here at Breaking Balls. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you soon.